Good afternoon, everyone. I am Baudrey Fraser, the co-creator and lead practitioner at iHeal Collective. And welcome to this timely and provocative debate, fasting, longevity booster or health saboteur. Tonight we'll be examining one of the most popular and controversial health practices of our time. Does fasting truly reset the body, trigger autophagy, reduce inflammation, and extend healthy lifespan? Or does it stress hormones, spike cortisol, impair metabolism, and ultimately shorten longevity for many people? We have a powerhouse lineup representing both sides of this critical conversation. Arguing that fasting can compromise health, we have Christian Yordanov. Christian is a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, health author, and host of the podcast, The Live Longer Formula. He is the author of How to Actually Live Longer and Autism Wellbeing Plan. With extensive clinical experience helping clients reverse severe gastrointestinal issues, toxicity, chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions, hypothyroidism, and hormonal imbalances. Christian uses functional testing and root cause natural protocols to optimize gut health, hormones, and true longevity. He has become one of the most vocal critics of intermittent fasting and low-carb diets, warning they can disrupt hormones, increase inflammation, and accelerate aging in many individuals. Please welcome Christian Yordanov.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing today, Christian?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for hosting this conversation. I think it's important.
Of course. And can you tell the guests where you're joining us from?
I live in the south of Portugal.
Amazing. How's the weather there?
Yeah. It's getting better. It's getting better. Very,
Amazing.
very nice now. Yeah.
And we've met Christian Yordanov at Acapulco, and he is a big fan of our mixed modality bodywork. And this is the first year I've kind of got to understand a little bit about where his protocols are coming from. I got to read his book. It's really good, and that's kind of what spurred this debate. So without further ado, let's move on to our next guest. And folks, I have to give a special shout out to Christian for stepping up in such a big way tonight. When we were putting this debate together, most people would have said, sure, I'll take on one opponent, or maybe the brave ones would say, hey, okay, I can handle two, but only if they go easy on me. Christian, he just smiled and suggested, bring on the big guns. I'll take them both on at once. And he looked at fasting benefits team and he thought, you know what? Let's make this interesting. So tonight, it's one passionate voice of caution against two enthusiastic advocates for fasting, and we couldn't be more excited about the challenge. This is the kind of fearless curiosity that we love in these conversations. Okay, so defending the benefits of fasting, we have two leading voices in natural health. First is Tim James, the founder and CEO of ChemicalFreeBody.com, health coach, speaker, author, chef, and supplement formulator. After overcoming his own serious health crisis, Tim transformed his life through chemical-free living, detoxification, and natural protocols, including strategic fasting. He has since coached thousands of people to reclaim their vibrant energy, eliminate medications, and live disease-free through his programs, super formulas like Green 85, and practical education on water fasting, dye fasting, juicing, and toxin removal. Tim, welcome.
Thanks for having me here, Baudrey. It's going to be fun.
How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic.
And can you please tell the guests where you're joining us from?
Yeah, I'm on a small farm in Northeast Oregon.
And what do you do on that small farm?
Well, I look at chickens out my window and preach health all day long to people to, become their own doctor, learn how to self-heal, and, just live a long, happy, healthy life and not live in fear.
And you're growing your own ingredients there, I hear.
Some of them.
Okay.
But for me personally, it's just for my
amazing.
own personal use. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to coming to visit you one of these days, maybe this summer.
We'll have you all up.
Amazing.
We'll
all
just keep
right.
we'll feed Christian food the whole time, and then we'll take one day off and do a little fasting.
I love it.
Christian, go get them chicken eggs and make yourself an omelet. Don't worry, we got you covered. We're not going to starve you.
Okay. And without all the omegas. All right. Without further ado, joining him is Anthony Sammeroff, psychotherapist, body worker, creator of Real Body Mechanics, and an iHeal Collective practitioner. And he's also the author of the best-selling book, Big Pharma Gets It Quacks Like a Duck, alongside with Procrastination Annihilation and How to Make Small Talk. For over a decade, Anthony has worked as a therapist and a coach, helping people achieve genuine healing and freedom. He's a fierce critic of pharmaceutical overreach and medical myths. He passionately advocates for natural, evidence-based approaches to health, including the powerful role of fasting in reducing inflammation, supporting mental clarity, and breaking dependence on big pharma solutions. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here with these titans.
And can you tell everyone where you're joining us from?
I'm joining you from Scotland, probably the coldest place.
I would think so. So thank you so much. We had 4 different time zones to encapsulate in this. So thank you guys so much for being here and making this work.
Thank you.
Okay, before we begin, here's some simple rules that we're going to follow today. So keep this debate productive and respectful. We expect mutual respect.
Aw.
I mean,
Aw.
I was gonna say these guys are all gentlemen, but with the little wind up we had before we got on. So I mean, keep it kind of respectful. You're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to have fun. Time limits will not so strictly enforced as we are all rebels. But we want to speak to the evidence. The moderator, which is me's decisions are final. Audience questions must stay civil and on topic. And if everyone agrees to these rules, please give me a quick thumbs up.
It was meant to be a quick thumbs
It was
up.
supposed to be quick. All right, thanks, guys. All right, so let's get ready to have a high quality and truth-seeking conversation. Okay, so we're going to get into our opening statements, and we're going to start with Christian. So why can fasting compromise health and longevity? Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, let me just open with I love both Anthony and Tim and what they're doing. I genuinely am convinced their heart is in the right place and that they are well intentioned and that they are doing a lot of good work, right? So my stance is the following on fasting. All that good work that we're doing is probably enough. We don't need to add fasting. So when the things we all preach to everybody is like, get the toxins out of your life, get the seed oils, buy clean organic food. If you can grow your own food, do that. Supplement your diet intelligently, sleep hygiene, light hygiene, EMF hygiene, all of that stuff. If we do all of those things, I believe for most people, it will get us 80 to 95% there in terms of what we actually need for health, longevity, and to reverse chronic disease. And I don't think fasting is necessary if we're doing all of those things. In fact, I think if someone is very healthy, yeah, sure, they can fast and it maybe won't have so many deleterious effects. But someone that's in a much more precarious state of health and or a little bit on the older end, let's say 40 plus, 50 plus, fasting is merely adding more stress to what is already probably a burdened, stressed system. Therefore, although them doing things for their health, like adding a bunch of healthy behaviors, all the things I just listed, although that can actually push them in the right direction, again, fasting, if anything, it will kind of be, that the kind of one step back type, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or it will kind of keep them in the same place. So I don't think it's necessary. There are very rare cases where I believe it can be useful initially when, kind of getting someone with immune issues, gut issues. It may be helpful in some cases, extreme cases, but those are extreme cases. Most people out there, they either are like in decent health, want to optimize health and longevity, or they have health challenges like, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, things like that. In those cases, most of those cases, we can get most, if not all of the benefits for them without them fasting themselves, because fasting is actually, when you look at it physiologically, it is a degenerative process that in the mainstream has now been sort of there's makeup being put on it, that they're reframing it to us as a rejuvenation process, but physiologically it is actually the way you survive a fast is through degenerating your body. So that's kind of my stance.
Okay, awesome. So Tim, I want you, we'll get back more into debating this further on, but Tim, can you give me some practical healing stories about fasting that you found within your work as your opening statement?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my whole business has been built around me being a human lab rat. People say things and that sounds great, but until I experience it myself and have first person experience, I don't really know if it works for me or not. And the other thing I'll say is that everybody's different, right? This is not one size fits all. I always say it depends. Because we're going to get into all this and you're going to ask me questions, but there's difference between juicing and water fasting and dry fasting and intermittent fasting. And I think they all have a place. It just depends on where you're at in your life and your health. So for me, I've used all of these at different times, and I have experienced extremely amazing benefits. And I've also experienced a few little wheels falling off during a fast, and which led me to stop the fast and learn from it. So, but I'd say overall, fasting, based on my personal experience and the people I've shared it with, is one of the most powerful things one can do for health, vitality, and cleaning up the mess that's in the body on a cellular level on this polluted planet we live in today.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay,
Yeah.
Anthony, your turn, and maybe you could touch on the mechanisms and big pharma context within your opening statements as well.
Okay. First of all, I know Christian, I'm friends with him. That's why he said he loved me. It's a love-hate relationship. He loves me, I hate him. And and I can't say that I'm sure that he's good intentioned. He is a little bastard. But that's
Aren't you
something that we love.
torturing him to health, though, like a lot of the years? So I feel like it should be the other
Uh,
way around.
That's his stuff.
oh yeah, that's true. But he just can't get enough of the torture. So there's a lot to say, and I think that Christian did a great job of outlining the stepping off points that we need to discuss. So I probably disagree with him strongly when he says like people who are in precarious health, it's not a good idea to fast because in my experience and in what I've seen, which means that I've spent weeks on like what was one of probably the most popular or the second most popular fasting retreat in the world before it closed down. I was able to see with my own eyes and my time spent there, tons of people reverse diseases, and people went there specifically to reverse diseases. And the facilitator had been facilitating fasts for 30, 40 years. And in that time, he'd seen lots of people reverse diseases which they were told were incurable. Now, Christian says he's hitting on the correct points of conversation because he says, well, maybe they could get those results without fasting. Maybe. I don't know that many people who've recovered from late stage cancers. I mean, there's people who do Gerson therapy. That's really grueling. There's all sorts of um, things that people can do with cancer, pancreatic enzymes, Brown's gas, blah, 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 blah. But okay, so at least the fasting worked for some people. For myself, I had all sorts of gut issues. I had blotching on my skin. I can show you, but I wouldn't like to, but I could show you before and after pictures of my feet where I had blotching going all up my feet. And now it's just limited to the bottom of my toenails. And every time I fasted, I went further. I saw because why? Because you're starving off all the fungus, all the parasites, all the bad bacteria in your body. Your body scouring your body. You said to talk about some of the mechanisms for dead and dying cells that it doesn't need. It's burning up all the crud to fuel itself through the fast. So, of course, you're going to see reductions in conditions like candida. Right. Fundamentally, one of the massive changes I saw over the period I was experimenting with fasting, not that it was the only factor, but it was a tremendous factor, is I used to have intolerances to gluten and dairy. And if I ate those foods, I would get eczema. And now I can eat those foods without getting eczema. So could I have done that without fasting? Maybe. I've not heard that many people do it before. I've not heard of many people reversing those diseases. But all I can say is that worked for me. And another question is, are people willing to do what it takes to
I'm the one asking the questions. I'm kidding.
yeah, to rhetorically speaking, my darling Baudry, one might ask the question, um, what are people willing to do? And they might not be willing to do all sorts of shit, but fasting is very simple. The theory goes that through most of our history, when we were hunter-gatherers, fasting was a normal part of life. That when we fast, the body recognizes that this is a time to rest and digest and to clean itself out. Um, and the deeper into the fast you go, the um, the more efficient that cleaning system comes. So very briefly, um, I know I'm not, as Christian Yordanov likes to say, brevity is not my strong point. Um, one of the things I've heard him say that many times on his podcast. So one of the things I've noticed from my own body is the more times I've fasted, the easier it is to fast. And I believe that's because when we fast, we go into detoxification mode. And the cleaner my body's become, like I was able to, I was able to do things. I was more energetic. And also, that's what I hear, from a fasting teacher and stuff like that who fasted so many people. Um, Secondly, the states of consciousness we access. Obviously, fasting's long been acknowledged as a spiritual practice. A lot of people hear that Hippocrates said, um, let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. But they don't know that the next line was, but to eat while sick is to feed your sickness, to feed your sickness. So it used to be well known that if you get sick, you stop eating for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. If you watch pets when they get sick, if you watch animals in nature when they get sick, they just sip water. They stop eating. So there's an innate intelligence there that we used to know. I was just reading a book, um, letters between two of my heroes, A.S. Neil and Wilhelm Reich. And in one of them, back then, I think it was the 1930s, he mentioned he got sick. He'd learned about fasting through people who were into natural lifestyles, and every time he got sick, he fasted. So this knowledge used to be in the culture, and when Rockefeller medicine came into place, it was taken out the culture because there's no money really to be made in fasting your way to health. So thank
Oh,
you.
okay, okay.
So
All
thank you for yeah, go on. Yeah,
yeah, okay.
thanks for giving me so much time.
I'm taking it out of your time later.
Okay.
Christian, do you have a quick minute
Recording in
rebuttal to that at
progress.
all? Oh, we just started recording now?
No, I'm recording on Zoom.
Okay. All right, Christian, do you have a quick rebuttal to that?
Yeah. So just quick before I start, how old were you when you started fasting, Anthony?
I guess I was in my early 30s.
Okay, early 30s. Okay. So first of all, the thing about when you fast that you're starving off the fungus and bacteria. This week, I think it was this week, I saw a study where they did a Buckinger fasting protocol with I think it was like 15, 16 men, and they actually analyzed the microbiomes. And
Hmm.
for sure, yeah, you have a reduction in bacteria while you fast. And what happens when you have less bacteria in the gut? Um, First of all, then you're producing less of what is known as lipopolysaccharides or endotoxin, right? So that explains why a lot of people benefit from fast, because it can actually decimate the microbiome. And then when they eat food next, they produce less of this very, very inflammatory bacterial cell wall fragment that each bacteria has millions of. And we know there's like tens of thousands of studies that this has been studied since 1920 or whatever. So we know endotoxin is implicated, that inflammation that is caused by the immune system responding to endotoxin coming into the bloodstream, that is implicated in liver disease, because the liver has to clear it out, in cancer, in Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, and atherosclerosis, and really a bunch of other stuff, right? Depression, you can cause depression symptoms by injecting like a human experimental sort of it's called like experimental endotoxemia. So when you fast, you get a break from that inflammation, inflaming your gut, and then you can reduce your biome. Now, here's the thing: that study that I just mentioned when I started, they found certain bacteria actually, relative to the other bacteria, increase in number, right? The ratio increases because some of these bacteria, they call them fasting resistant bacteria, and then what was the other one? Fasting susceptible bacteria. I forget the exact acronym. So the fasting resistant bacteria, they can survive off the host. So what do they start munching on? They start munching on your mucus layer. So there's things like glycoproteins, amino acids. So they can actually, and of course other bacterial fragments, they can eat each other and stuff like that, or their remnants. So although you are, yes, when you stop putting food in the body, if the person's gut is dysbiotic, and that gives them a break from the inflammation, and the lowering of the microbiome, that can lower the inflammation. We can already achieve those things with changes in the diet, and we can, like with my clients in the USA, we do food sensitivity testing where we instead of using a sledgehammer, which is how I see fasting, we can use a more sniper approach, right? So yeah, I'm not going to use a sledgehammer to put up a painting in my living room, you know. So we have the tools now. No, so back in the day when people didn't know some of these things we know now, like endotoxin and certain foods that can feed it, like fibers, fermentable fibers. So we can actually tweak the diet. And then with some clients in the USA, of course, that want to do the food sensitivity testing, we can see what are the most inflammatory foods for someone's immune system. So we can reduce inflammation with diet while still nourishing the body. Because at the end of the day, when you fast, there is evidence that your gut markers worsen. Things like calprotectin, which they use to diagnose Crohn's disease, for example, that increases. Zonulin, which they use to kind of tell you if you have leaky gut, intestinal permeability increases, and a few other markers for gut function worsen with fasting, because it's well known that stress of any kind through the increase in cortisol actually perturbs the gut. Even public speaking has been shown to increase intestinal permeability. Now, the only difference when you fast is there isn't the antigenic component from the diet that can then get into the immune system and then trigger all that inflammation. So it's almost like you removing offending foods and triggers, but it's a little bit of a kind of like a sledgehammer approach. So that's kind of one thing I would say. Then the other thing about the fasting and all the people that go to those centers, I looked at there's a center here in Malaga, and they have one in Germany. They publish papers, and their center is amazing, dude. I would love to go there and tell them, listen, guys, I'm coming. I'm gonna eat 2,000 calories a day, which is less than I normally eat. Don't make me fast, but I would love to, enjoy all your therapy. So they really, in those centers, they get pampered, man. They do Pilates and massage, and you can get IV drips. So really, going to a fasting center, you're not just fasting. Most people at home, they're fasting and they're stressed and they're working, right? So in
Just
a
a
center.
minute.
Just
That's
hold
not
on. I
that
just want
wasn't
to
the
a few.
case in my set. That wasn't the case in the center that I was alluding
Okay.
to.
Hold on.
But-
That
but-
was supposed to be a couple minute rebuttal. I'm gonna cut him off there. Just finish
Well,
his
he-
closing
he
statement,
can
and then we'll
finish
get
his
into
point.
that.
He can finish
Let me
his
just finish the
point.
sentence.
Yeah.
So fasting, the point is that when someone decides, you know what, I gotta get my health together, or I gotta shift all this weight, that accompanies a bunch of other healthy behaviors. So even though you may fast, you're not just it doesn't make sense to, I'm gonna fast and do nothing else, keep drinking and eating crap. So it accompanies healthy behavior. So I'm sure a lot of those people, they removed gluten, they removed grains, inflammatory foods, and a lot of that is what actually got them the health benefits and reducing the endotoxin in the gut, which we can do without fasting.
Okay.
So
And
I-
no problem. We're going to get into the questions, and I think this is going to tie into the things that you were going to say, Anthony, as we move through this. Okay, so Tim, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
What does the mainstream scientific consensus actually show about intermittent fasting and its effects on metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, long-term longevity? Where do the two sides disagree with this data?
Okay, so I know you're wanting to get into scientific stuff. I apologize. I'm probably not your guy on this as far as scientific studies and stuff like that.
That's
So-
okay. You can tailor it more to your personal experience and the experience of
Yeah,
the people you've been
so,
working with.
I
Because to
just
me,
have to-
that is science.
I'm kind of like nature boy. Okay, so
that's
I
fair.
realized that all my suffering, why I was shitting blood for 2.5 years, why I had eczema all over my body, was because I had gotten away from the mothership, Earth. And the deviation from nature was where all the suffering was. And like Christian said earlier, the EMFs, and there's pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, larvicides, chemical fertilizers. I mean, there's just shit everywhere. I mean, I actually wipe my butt with bamboo toilet paper now because I don't want dioxins and forever chemicals and chlorine in my ass causing colon cancer. And I told this to a friend today, and he's like, even in the toilet paper, good Lord. He's like, it's everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, so this is everywhere. So, but I go back to foundation. Like, for the entirety of time, human beings have been walking on this planet that we didn't have houses and cars and all this stuff. You get naked and you go out in the woods, see how much food you're going to find. You see how much fat, salt, and sugar you're going to be able to get. You're going to find food and you're going to eat. You're going to be on your hands and knees pulling, you're going to eat grubs. You're going to be eating lots of roots and berries and stuff because animals are faster and they can see better and they can hear better than you. It's hard to catch food, right? Because they're smart. They don't want to be ate, right? So I believe that we didn't, and if you look back historically, we were foraging. We were having 100 to 300 different varieties of foods. So we were getting all these nutrients and all these cofactors and all this wonderful stuff from the planet. And there was no pollution back then. And almost all the water we were drinking was structured, which is another big thing. And so even when we became nomadic, I mean, we would come to a meadow and eat the ancestors of spinach or cabbage. Then we'd walk for 2-3 days and we wouldn't eat. So we are genetically programmed to eat and take that food and burn glucose. And then we're also programmed to, when that stops and runs out, to switch over and burn fat and produce ketones. These are both primary fuel sources. It's not that glucose is primary and fat is secondary. They're both primary. It just happens that the healing process really kicks into gear. All the autophagy, the senescent or dead mutated cells get cleaned up during the process of burning fat when you're not eating food. And I've just seen this with my own eyes. Dr. Alan Goldhammer, the True North Clinic, 30-some years. You want clinical data? Go there and look on water fasting. Dr. Filonov and Shashenkov over in Russia, 40 years of research, thousands of people coming with catastrophic diseases and cancer and stuff, doing dry fasting. Not only are they not eating, but they're not drinking anything. They're making their own. We actually make our own what's called metabolic water or endogenous water inside of our cells every day, whether you're fasting or not, up to 5, 6, 7, 8% somewhere in there. So with that all being said, this might not even be a debate because I agree with Christian. Like if you take somebody that's sick, okay, and their eyes are in the back of their head and they're very weak, then water fasting or dry fasting is probably a stupid thing to do. The first thing we need to do is get them on structured water and hydrate them and nutrients. We have to nutrify these people. They're probably not a candidate. Now, there are other people that do have cancers and stuff like that, and they're overweight, and they're a perfect candidate for fasting. So the whole thing is, the debate is it really depends. So when people come to us, the first thing we do is we just try to get them off of, and let's understand this. Everybody listening to this podcast, this debate right now, you're fasting every day. You do it when you sleep. And everybody knows when your body gets sick, what does it make you do? It makes you go lay down, you stop eating, and it wants you to sleep. And during that sleep, you're fasting. This is where the healing is taking place. Everybody knows that just even when you are eating.
So we're talking
when
about
you go
intermittent
to sleep,
fasting there.
You're intermittent fasting. So what we do is we just have people stop eating heavy foods for breakfast and replace that with a nutrient-rich green juice. That's what we have people do in the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's the beginning. It's just extending that fast and trying not to put heavy food in your body until after 11 a.m. And then we try to help people not eat heavy food after 6 p.m. so that they can finish digestion and then get into REM sleep and then the deeper levels of sleep, right? So that's kind of the beginning. Yeah. And then, then maybe we get them 1 day a week, they're doing all juice. And then 2, 3, 4 months down the road, maybe they do a water fast for 1 day. And maybe 6 months or 2 years down the road, they do their first dry fast for 1 day. And then they actually do 3 days. And then they can get into a 5-day where you can create millions of your own stem cells. Millions of your own stem cells for free. And you can burn no big deal. In 7 days, you can burn 15 to 18 pounds of fat for those of you that are overweight. But this is something we have to stair step certain people into. Some of them can go right into a dry fast. Some of them can go right into a water fast. Some of them can go into juice fasting or juice feasting. It depends on the individual's health. It depends on their mental capabilities. But I'll tell you what I have seen. What I have seen is the people that work their way up or that do these fastings. It's like what Anthony was talking about. there is such a bigger, deeper component to fasting than just healing the body. It's tapping in to God, into that God self and your spiritual path, whatever that is to you. And it's in all the religious texts. It doesn't matter. Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, it's all in there. It's like, you want to get closer to God, fast and pray. So it's a huge spiritual component, I think, that's getting missed out when you're consuming food all the time. But there might be some people on there that they always have to eat food, and maybe that's not their choice. And this is the beautiful part of this existence, is it's all about choice. So I honor and validate all choices, whether you want to fast or not. It doesn't matter. I'm just here to say what works for me, and what I've seen work with hundreds of people and thousands of people and all the clinics that I went through and the people that I've coached. And that's all I got to say about that.
I like it. That was beautifully put. That's beautifully put. I think we have quite a good debate here, because I really value all the three of your guys' experiences and how you've worked with your clients. Anthony, can you touch a little bit more specifically on intermittent fasting? And then we'll throw it back to you, Christian.
I guess I think of intermittent fasting as not so much a fast as just doing what we did for most of history. Um, the the traditional knowledge up until recently was that you are supposed to earn your hunger. So it wasn't normal for people to have breakfast. They would go out and work and then eat breakfast once they'd earned their hunger. That only really changed in the last 100 years or so. Um, Tim Healy brought out a book about that myth that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and demonstrating how that myth was basically perpetuated by things like cereal companies and things like that. So I always tell people, like my fasting teacher, for all his experience, he was very doctrinaire and religious, and he was not religious as in he had a religion, but he was very perfectionist. I always tell people the best fast is the fast that you actually do. So people come into to me. So I mean, when I try a 1 day, 2 day fast, water fast, I'm like, well, there's a gain and a benefit to doing a short term fast. For most people, the first day is the hardest day, and if not, the second day is the hardest day. So if they do 1 or 2 day fast, they're going to think that doing 3 to 5 days is impossible, because it's going to all be as hard as the fast day. That might happen. So that might put them off. But people say, oh, I think I can only do what, then sure, like experiment.
He's cut out of my headphones.
Yeah, his internet's a little
Sure how I'm not, yeah, so I think the risk is with doing lots of small fasts, which could happen is people could lose, and that's probably longer than an intermittent fast, could lose muscle mass, because after a couple of days you start processing fat instead of muscle. So if I was to be asked by someone,
I want to keep it on the intermittent fasting, because you're starting to touch on something I'm bringing up later.
Okay, I don't know a lot about intermittent fasting.
So
I kind of do it, and I do a
you think
naughty
it's
thing.
not, it's not really a thing, it's just how we should live. It's like how we used to live.
think
And
it's
we've changed out with the food pyramid and yada, yada, yada.
It's for most people, if you get in the habit of eating breakfast, you'll get hungry early because you're training your body to get hungry early. And if you don't eat breakfast, you'll get out of the habit and you won't get hungry until like 11 or something like that, or later. So you can train yourself. And when I don't eat breakfast, I don't need it.
I have 30 seconds on intermittent fasting that I'd like to share.
Sure.
It's very important.
Okay, you go ahead, and then I'm going to throw back to you, Christian.
Okay, so look at your skin. Everybody look at your skin. Get naked. Where would you live at on this planet? You would be living within 1,500 miles of the equator. When does it get daylight? When does it get dark? It gets daylight about 6 a.m. It gets dark about 6 p.m. So there wasn't a whole lot of things called light bulbs back then for the entirety of time. Once again, human beings were running around. So when it got dark, you went to bed. So at 6 p.m., there was no eating. Okay, once again, the genetic programming of the human species has been programmed over hundreds of thousands of years to go to bed at 6 p.m. End of story. So it doesn't matter that we've changed things lately and we've got cars and planes and houses and sweaters and heaters and air conditioners. We've moved up above the 45th parallel, but that genetic programming has not changed.
Okay.
Just very briefly, I think it's a bad idea to tell a nation of overweight people that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Like, if you'd been telling them that intermittent fasting is good, there'd be a lot less obesity.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to probably bring this a little bit later, but I want you guys to think about this as I go over to Christian is I heard this before that women are lunar and men are solar, and that might play in a little bit to that. But Christian, can you wrap this up or rebuttal back? I wanted you to touch on metabolic health and maybe insulin sensitivity.
There's so many points that we could unpack, but
We're going to
I'm just
unpack
gonna try
more
to
as we go down. We've touched on a
yeah.
lot of
I
things
would
in other
just
questions.
yeah. There's definitely some stuff. So first of all, the True North studies, I've been looking at those. They rarely do follow up on these people. First of all, so we don't know what's happening. Years down the line, months down the line, they only look at very few markers in most of the studies. So I don't look at that published research is very helpful. And the only what I found is we have to connect dots over disparate studies where they look at thyroid, they look at testosterone, lean mass losses here. So the data out there is really like poor because there's so little follow up. So we actually don't know that our ancestors lived longer because they fasted. We don't know that they were actually healthier because they had to fast. They fasted because they had to do it. So we actually don't know if they would have been healthier if they had a constant supply of food. Then the other thing about it is I think just in terms of like our history, I don't believe the narratives about evolution a lot. I'm sure we adapt to our environment and stuff. But if you look at the pyramids, the mounds in Ireland, and all of these other structures in kind of the north and other places that are pretty cold in the winter, there was advanced civilizations. And I'm thinking, people are saying Tartaria, they had free energy. So I'm thinking, wait, if they had free energy and they could build these cathedrals and they could build these pyramids thousands of years ago, if they had free energy, I'm sure the food must have been like a little bit of a higher priority. Maybe they had that down. So I don't believe the whole thing that we were like evolved from apes and we were just like foraging. Because in any case, for tens of like a 10,000 year period, anyway, we've had agriculture, so we've had access to food. So and also fire, we've had that for hundreds of thousands of years, so we could actually have light at night, right? So it's not like we had to immediately go to sleep if the sun was down. But to me, what I think is important to actually touch on, and there's a lot of other stuff we can discuss, but the thing about autophagy, right? So I've actually been looking at some studies on autophagy, guys, and I think this is probably one of the push in social media about autophagy. I almost am convinced 100% that this came from a think tank. That Japanese dude won the Nobel Prize about it in 2016, 2018 onwards. It was everywhere. And when I looked into some of the research, like experts that are in this field on autophagy, I will tell you, I just have a couple of quick quotes from some papers on the topic. So let me just find up here 1 second. So autophagy, I'm gonna have a whole chapter in my book about this, right? So let me just so here is one study. So there are two main types of autophagy, defined by their specificity. On the one hand, there is bulk or non-selective autophagy, which indiscriminately sequesters and degrades parts of the cytoplasm, the cell, including organelles and macromolecular complexes. On the other hand, there is selective autophagy, which targets specific, often potentially harmful cargoes for degradation. So, non-selective autophagy, this is another quote from the paper. Non-selective autophagy allows cells to survive through nutrient starvation until the next nutrient source is available. And guess what type of autophagy fasting upregulates? It upregulates non-selective autophagy. So, whilst it is true, if your cells are stressed, that absolutely they're going to degrade stuff that's not working well. However, there is always going to be collateral damage, and good parts are going to get sacrificed for the greater good of the cell in the body. Think about it this way: the analogy is you lose your job, you lose your income, you come home, and you're like, honey, I just lost my job and our income. Let's let's do up
Scale
the
back.
house. No, you're gonna scale back. You're gonna cut off the takeout, the Netflix. You're gonna maybe sell some old crap you have. But then, as it gets worse, that starvation of income,
Hmm.
you're gonna probably sell the nice couch you just bought 2 years ago. You're gonna sell your refrigerator because you don't have food anyway. So it kind of is illogical that we go into starvation mode, and the body suddenly, all of a sudden, now decides to rejuvenate and heal and become younger. This is what we've been sold in the mainstream. So it absolutely does not make sense from just from even like an evolutionary perspective. Is when you starve to start do. Now it is true that people, again, with extreme cases, you can see people when they fast, things start happening that are beneficial. But again, it's not just the fasting that they're doing the diet, all the other stuff that we discussed. So the fact is, if you have a healthy person though, and you fast them and they're older, let's say 40, 50, 60, and 70 and onwards, if you fast that person, they are going to lose tissue and cells and parts of cells that were totally fine. And actually, autophagy is always running in our cells, and things that upregulated are exposure to toxins, oxidative stress, which we produce when we make energy, exercise, sun exposure, heat, things that we just like daily life increases autophagy anyway. So the fact that we've been sold and I believe this is must have been some kind of organized think tank, social media, AI, algorithm sort of boost, is we've been sold that we need to upregulate this process, because it's like saying we found this process in the brain or the kidney or the heart that does this when you're stressed. So now you have to stress yourself to upregulate that process. When, like Tim said, we are genetically programmed. The body knows what to do. Whether or not you're eating or not, you're always detoxing, you're always healing, and you're always repairing, as long as you have what do you need for those things. Well, you need energy, you need nutrients, and then of course you need to be like in a parasympathetic state. Now of course,
I like how you're
yeah,
answering
you
literally the next question.
yeah, so I'll stop there because I could
So
go on forever here.
we did two in one to a degree, and I like that. I'm going to give you a chance to rebuttal that, guys. But Anthony or Tim, or you guys can cut in on each other if you'd like. I want you to speak a little bit, maybe more towards the cellular reset that you're going to get, and maybe rebuttal him on autophagy as well.
Go ahead, Anthony.
And okay, well, I mean, I feel like you're kind of you you said you were well intentioned in this debate. No, but you're manipulating but you're manipulating the debate by using the term starving, and that's a big assumption. That's kind of like in philosophy what we call begging the question, which is you're
I quoted
He's
the
you're
going to go
scientist here.
psychotherapist on you now.
okay,
I cited
okay,
what the scientist said. Nutrient starvation is literally what they said, and I have other
okay,
quotes I can share on the screen. I
okay,
didn't
but
say it. Well,
but
I mean, I did say it, but I
I know
believe it.
you're very
So
rigorous, and I appreciate that. Whereas we're coming more from not just our own anecdotal perspectives, but also what we've seen. And I think, a lot of um people tried a lot of other things before coming to fasting, and maybe they tried the wrong things. But fasting is finally the thing that and I did a episode of my podcast called um What's the best thing you've ever done for yourself, and why is it fasting? If anyone wants to listen to that at some point. So I think it's an assumption that you're starving. Tim and I seem to be of a mind that your body recognizes fasting as a natural process and knows how to do it, and that the body is an intelligent system. So exactly as Christian said, you're not going to um, auction off a load-bearing wall in your house as the first thing that happens when you go broke, so that your house collapses. First, you're going to go, we don't really need that painting anymore. Oh, there's a bunch of knickknacks we can sell on eBay. They're only just taking room. Now, it's definitely true that if you're dangerously malnourished or malnourished, period, um, then maybe this is not such a good idea for you. If you're anorexic, if you're bulimic, that's a stupid idea. However, that's most people in Western countries have like 2 months of reserves on them at least to burn through. And people have been shown, okay, I don't actually I have been told that people have been shown to even correct nutrient deficiencies on fasts, because the nutrients were somewhere around in their body, they just weren't in the bloody cell. So once they got rid of all the junk, they could be claimed. So the one more thing I wanted to say was I was informed that, a lean person like me might think they might not that I'm as lean as I used to be. Age will do that to you. Might not want to fat.
Have you tried
Um,
fasting?
right, might be. Yeah, exactly. And actually, that was one of the ways that I totally leaned up again when I first put on a belly. Uh, like the may be worried about, maybe trepidatious about fasting, but actually on a fast of a decent length, a lot of people who are too lean have assimilation problems, and that those can actually be corrected in a fast. And I really do think that was my experience. I think I had assimilation problems, and a lot of my digestive issues were corrected with the use of fasting. Hence the reduction of food intolerances, of mucus-related illnesses, blotching, fungal forms, and things like that. And also, yeah, so um,
Can I throw
what
that?
I think, yeah, please
Can I
go
throw
for
that
it.
to Tim? I like the way we touched on the topics that I want to on this question, but maybe we could speak a little bit, Tim, if you have some information on what fasting does as far as cortisol or hormonal levels of testosterone, or maybe muscle loss. Have you come across any of that in what you've seen?
Well, from what I remember, one thing that's really cool is that I'm talking about water fasting. Almost positive that it's going to be the same or even more on dry fasting, because like I realized after 15 years of being a health coach and running this company for 10 years, everything we're doing is trying to get everybody ready for a dry fast. That's our goal now,
Oh,
because I
really?
think it's the most powerful thing that I've seen ever in
Can I
15 years
can
for
I ask
healing. But
why?
well, from my own personal experience, I mean, because within 5 days, not only you burning up fat, but you are starting to kill parasites, yeast, mold, and fungus, because you starve them of water. They don't have access to your water that you're making inside of you. It's called that metabolic water, right? So, like a camel has a big fat hump, and people are like, "Whoa, camels can go out in the desert and they don't have water." Well, they make their own water. The fat gets cleaved down into glycerol and then eventually other smaller components, and one of them is hydrogen. You breathe in the oxygen, and the cell mitochondria, the hydrogen and the oxygen mix and become water. Bears do
So
it when they hibernate, and kangaroo rats do it in the desert. They don't even hardly ever get access to water to drink at all, and the kangaroo rat lives without it. So we actually do this on a daily, even when we're eating food. But during a dry fast, I mean, I have go to my Instagram, chemical free body
so
guide.
we got some real
You'll
world outcomes on your Instagram then of people that have done dry fasting and their kind of
Yeah.
stories.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You'll
Okay.
see. I mean, I have a recent
Check that
video
out,
I shot
everybody.
on dry fasting, chemical-free body guys, over close to 90,000 views on. I did it 8 days, no food, no water. But another post in there shows where I forgot to do it on day one, but days 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm peeing out. I'm peeing every day, and I have the jars, and I lined them all up, took photo of them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's really
So,
interesting.
to answer your question, the two things I remember is you make new brain cells just in like, and then 2 days you can increase human growth hormone, the HGH, by 2,000%. So those are some of the scientific things that I remember, which is quite remarkable, because guys are spending a lot of money to go drive through traffic, get injections of HGH, and it's not even theirs. It could be synthetic, and I can make my own in 2 days for free.
So you're saying that fasting won't cause muscle loss. It will actually do the opposite. You'll actually be able to gain
It
muscle if you're
depends.
doing it correctly.
It depends. Like one thing that Goldhammer said was that when you're doing water fasting, you're not exercising. If you exercise while you're water fasting, you're going to burn through your muscle, and then you're going to have to work your ass off and build it back. But if you just chill out, you'll see your muscles shrink because they're, but that,
They're
um,
dehydrating.
yeah, but then not as much as you do on a dry fast. But then when you come back, your muscle mass is right there. Now on dry fasting, there's actually some hormone related to the kidney that gets released, and as long as you're chilling out, like the muscle doesn't go away. Like it really gets skinny because there's no water in it. But then when you rehydrate, boom, it comes back. And I mean,
Okay.
I got muscles. Like I'm living proof of it. I feel awesome after 8 days. Like here was another takeaway for me. Like I have a guy was an Olympic level bodywork specialist. He lives here in my hometown. I'm like so just gifted to have him here. And every time he works on me, it's freaking painful. It's kind of like going to you guys. Like it freaking hurts, right? And I'm just like, I was like, John, is there any way you can work on me so it doesn't hurt so damn bad? And then like, but when I leave, I feel great, right? I feel amazing. And he's like, sorry, Tim, that's part of the deal, right? After an 8-day dry fast, I went in and halfway through the thing, he's working on me. And I'm like, are you pushing as hard? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm going, are you doing normal or are you just going light on me because of this dry fast thing? And he's like, no. He's like, I'm doing the exact same work. I had no pain during that session. And I was like 2 days off of a dry fast. And so like
Should have dry fasted before your treatment with Baudry in that case.
yeah,
I should have dry fasted,
17
I think.
hours of treatment with
17
her
hours in a
5
week.
days. Yeah,
Crushed
it was
Wow.
Okay, so that's really
So
interesting.
I have things to say.
Yeah,
I
no,
have
no.
things
I'm going to
say.
throw the rebuttal to you. I'm going to throw the rebuttal to you, but I would also maybe like you to touch a little bit on cortisol levels and testosterone because it's something I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interested in. Okay, within that.
Is it okay if I share the screen?
Yeah, of course. Sean,
Okay,
actually,
so
that's a
just
question
before
for
I do
Juan.
I might have
Yeah.
to request.
Close down some of those
tabs.
tabs first, Christian.
I sent a request to Sean. Okay, so just before, I just want to, just guys, by the way, the whole growth hormone things, and I know there's guys out there injecting themselves with it. That is like one of the dumbest things humans are doing, because actually, apart from the cool name of growth hormone, it's a cool name. It's actually carcinogenic. Right? This is not. This is a stress hormone akin to cortisol and serotonin, which is also a stress hormone. It's raising, like fasting raising growth hormone. It's a stress hormone, and I'm gonna have a. It won't be in the full book. It will probably be in an appendix or like an FAQ section. I have research that it's linked to cancer risk, and then in rodent studies, low growth hormone, or like when they kind of knock out the gene for growth hormone or the receptor, they actually reduce their cancer incidence by 50 to 70%. So the whole thing, fasting raising growth hormone, we have been sold yet another psyop with the growth hormone, and the fact that people are injecting themselves with it is absolute insane. It's like, but it's the same with like hydrocortisone. Like they're giving people cortisol for freaking all sorts of
Oh my
health conditions
goodness.
so it's a
Yeah.
very, very inverted sort of crazy system. Let me see if I can share the screen. I want to
So,
show you
So quickly,
just,
yeah, you can
covering
you
the
can.
cortisol and testosterone here now.
Yeah, and,
Next.
and
I wanna
metabolic
just crowbar that
slowdown. Sorry, I just wanted to tie that in. What you were basically saying with that is actually caused your metabolic rate to slow down within
Of course. Like,
Okay.
and I will show you now what happens. But
Yeah,
let's
go
just.
ahead.
This is an 8-day water-only fast. This was done in Poland. 8 guys. Okay, they were pretty healthy. Not old. They were like I think 44 or so. So this was an 8. So they were 49 years of age plus minus give or take 9 years. So they were looking at. They said looking at favorable changes in the functioning of the urogenital system of middle-aged healthy men. 8 days water only.
Not this
So look at
again,
this.
Christian.
Look at this. Look at this. I want to show you so these are the variables that they looked at. So they looked at FSH, LH, prolactin, TT here. This is total testosterone before and after. So before 8 days of fasting, it was almost 600 nanograms per deciliter of total testosterone. It had dropped 35% at the end of the fast.
But how long
35%
did it
reduction in
drop
total
for?
testosterone.
Sorry,
Hold on. They
Hold
don't
on,
do
Anthony.
follow-up. I already mentioned they don't do follow-up on these studies, because if they did, I believe we would see a lot of like negative things happening. And I'll show you in the next paper here briefly what I saw. But total testosterone dropped 35% in 8 days. Free testosterone dropped almost 28%. SHBG went up 25%, which reduces bioavailability of these hormones. DHEA, another protective hormone that can be converted to androgens like testosterone, DHT, dihydrotestosterone, that went down 22%. Okay, and then just talking about muscle loss, this other study in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle. So it's called Is Muscle and Protein Loss Relevant in Long-Term Fasting in Healthy Men? This was a 10-day Buckinger protocol fast. Like many people that are into fasting have heard of Otto Buckinger. He popularized his protocol. Basically, you get a small supplement of like honey and a bit of juice during the fast. So you get like 200, 250 calories a day. So they did 10 days here, 16 men, 44 years on mean, and they look at this. So they lost just over 1.5 kilograms, like 3.5 pounds of lean mass. That's excluding water, glycogen, and stuff like that. So the actual like liver, intestine, muscle, potentially bone. That so they lost 3.5 pounds in 10 days, and they only lost like 5.2 pounds of fat. So, and keep in mind they had a supplement of food. So there's a study here. Briefly, I'll show it.
Can I
Protein
ask if
conversion.
can I ask if these
Yeah.
were controlled? Like how many people were per study,
was-
or were they healthy?
Yeah, they were healthy. There was no control in terms of there was no control group, and that's the other problem, of course.
Okay.
But so it's estimated from if you degenerate 100 grams of your liver or muscle protein, you will make 60 grams of glucose. So they were getting given about 50 to 62 grams of basically honey and carbohydrate from those orange juices and broth. So that could be another 100 grams per day they could lose, which is another 2.5 pounds that they could have lost if there was a proper water fast. But here's the thing. Okay, 3.5 pounds of lean mass, like metabolically active tissue loss. I personally wouldn't sign up for that, but it doesn't sound like a lot. But look at this. They actually, the reason I think this study is important is because it gives us a glimpse what happens 3 months down the line. So look at this. Look at this graph here. Sorry, there's some data here. So their basal metabolic rate. You see I'm going to zoom in here. Their basal metabolic rate. The black is at baseline before the fast. Day 4, day 9 is in the middle. The fourth gray one, that's on the refeed day 3, and then on follow-up is the checkered, right? So so of course during the fast their basal metabolic rate is reduced, of course. On the refeed it barely upticks, but then they were refeeding with like low calorie, like 800, 1600 calories, this kind of thing. But look at 3 months later, the follow-up, their basal metabolic rate was like, it was almost 1900 calories a day. This was just over 1700 calories a day. That's 3 months later. That's one thing. Then they looked at satiety hormones. So their ghrelin, let me just find the ghrelin here, which is a satiety or hunger signaling hormone. So their ghrelin, look, it was the black here is baseline. During the fast, it didn't go up too much, so they weren't feeling too hungry probably. But upon 3 months later, the ghrelin had tripled, which is again a hunger signaling hormone. And then the leptin, it's the one in the middle here, E. Their leptin had dropped a little bit, not a lot, but leptin is more like a long-term sort of energy. When it's high, body's like, okay, there's food, I can upregulate my thermogenesis, my metabolism. When it plummets, like on a fast, the body lowers body heat production and thermogenesis, and then it lowers reproductive function, the thyroid, dopamine, all these things go down. So their leptin had dropped a little bit, their ghrelin was increased, and then they asked them here, H and I, are 2 questions, surveys. How hungry do you feel? It was about the same on follow-up 3 months later. And then how much do you think you can eat? It was the same. So that's, to me, this basal metabolic rate drop is absolutely, to me, it's staggering after 1 10-day fast. Like, look at this chart. Like this, when I saw this, I'm like, holy cow. What will happen to people getting into fasting 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the line, especially if they keep it up? Now, they're going to do a lot of healthy behaviors, and that's great, and that could keep things moving. But can you sustain this when you're 60, 70, 80? And that's the thing. We're told fasting is good for longevity, but if you can't sustain the practice when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, how is it a longevity practice? A longevity practice should be sustainable into old age, right?
Now, all extremely interesting. Now, between the first and the 3 months later study, was there any controlled variables, what was happening with their diet, their lifestyle within that process?
That is such a good question. Of course not, because it's extremely expensive. So
Yeah.
all we know is, I think it's called the Hawthorne effect, is if you're part of a
Hawthorne
study,
effect, yeah.
you're likely to continue either during the study you're likely to do healthier things, healthier behaviors, because you know you're being observed, and then if you know you'll be followed up, it's likely you're gonna keep your shit together. And that's the thing. These guys were they were fasters. They were healthy. I think they exercised, and they were exercising during the fast, which would probably send signals for the body to preserve some lean tissue like muscle. But they still lost, again, with a caloric supplement, they still lost 3.5 pounds of very precious lean tissue, which when you're 45, 49, maybe you can regain it. But if you do periodic fasting, let's say every quarter or every 6 months, and you keep losing these 3-4 pounds and keep regaining them, I mean, the whole point of like so many doctors with one day they're posting how important muscle mass preservation is for longevity. It's a negative predictor of mortality. And then with another post, they're like, "Oh, you gotta fast because of the autophagy," and it's like,
Right.
how are you supposed to maintain this muscle and even build some muscle? Because you have lots of people that have little muscle mass and a lot of fat mass. So
Okay.
I believe there's better ways to be done. And there was other things.
Okay.
There's actually, this is a decent study, but there's a lot of data here to discuss. So I'll stop here.
Okay, awesome.
So
I'm going to throw this to you, Anthony, in just a sec. So, or maybe I'll throw it to you now. I had a good question and now it's gone. Anthony, go ahead.
Sorry, I blabber on.
No. Yeah, that was very informative.
right, well, I know this is anecdotal, but over the 30 or whatever years that he ran fasting retreats, my teacher had several professional athletes come in and improve performance afterwards. The stuff, I've got this study from Cell Metabolism and JAMA Internal Medicine, which says, Chris, your testosterone's going to fall after this debate because of the whipping that you're going to receive. So,
Oh,
so
by the way,
it's
by the
two
way,
on one,
intermittent-
Tim.
I
Sharpen
have
your.
a- I have
Checkbook
study on
science.
intermittent
Checkbook
fasting.
science. Yeah.
I
who
have
knows?
a study on intermittent fasting that they actually did at 8 weeks. The men's testosterone dropped like 20 to 25%.
Right.
They were training, and then
So,
a year later, it was still that low from
Let's put
intermittent
links to
fasting.
these studies
Interesting.
at the end of these so
So
that our audience base
what-
can go and explore these within our own time because we're only two
Okay, so
questions in
that's
and we
more-
have to giddy up.
That's more interesting because when you were talking about the hormones, I was thinking, without knowing how long those hormones dropped for, we don't know anything because if your body is going into a sort of uh, cleansing process or whatever, that fasting is a mode that the body goes into, then it's not surprising then that if you check a few days, you're going to have different hormone levels. If they jump back up quickly, then it's really nothing to worry about. If, as you say, you follow up and those hormones are still too low,
Mhm.
then,
Yeah,
then that would be
and they
something
were
to be
young
concerned about. But we
guys. They
just
were
don't
young
know
guys. That's
yet.
the
We
other
just don't.
thing. They were young
And I
guys.
think that's a problem is we don't have enough data, but even so, I think it's going to be quite difficult to convince someone like Tim or myself who feel like they've experienced firsthand benefits and seen others do the same through a couple of studies. Not that those studies might be wrong. It's just going to take more time to convince us because we feel like we've actually tasted the apple, so to speak, or
Yeah.
foregone the apple.
And to me,
Yeah.
it's not
And
you I
yeah,
want to convince anyway.
right. Okay.
I'm an anarchist. You know, I'm an
I'm,
anarchist.
You're a lost
I
cause,
believe
Anthony.
we should all do
I
whatever
know.
we want to do.
I think what we
I'm
should do
willing-
right now is push-ups. Let's have a push-up contest. So you can do the most push-ups.
Ooh,
And then the winner wins.
all right,
The
all right, you
winner
guys.
of that-
Who can go
Then-
run the farthest in the mountains? Burpees. Hey, burpees is an easy one.
it's
Can you
not
do
gonna be
25
me.
burpees? Can you do 100 burpees in a row? I mean, that's if you can do 25 burpees,
I used to could. I used to
The
could.
question
Okay.
is, can you fast for 21 days in a row? Because if you can't, then you're just like not okay. Like obviously
Sean, I
you're
need to
just
script back.
psychologically motivated by the fact that you just can't do it and you're just too much of a wuss.
Here's the thing
Okay,
about
let's
these.
throw it to
these
Tim for
studies-
Tim for a minute here.
Yeah, guys, the thing with studies is I love the science end of things too.
Right.
But most people
Me
don't know
too.
how to read the studies. That's what I've been taught by quite a few people that do know how to read them. And then the abstracts and stuff, a lot of times, like Christian, I can tell he's reading the whole damn thing.
Right.
All right. So that's great.
Yeah.
But there's also something called the scientific method. That's what science is supposed to do. So just because it's a study doesn't mean it's the scientific method. There's checkbook science. There's been many things. And there's a scientific consensus, which is not the scientific method. So with that said, like Anthony and I are more about this real world stuff. I'm 52 years old. I got tons of muscle on my body. I can do whatever the hell I want. I do dry fasting and stuff like that. These scientific, the thing where he said a year later and their hormones were down. My question is like, okay, what are they actually eating? Because like we do health histories. I've done personally 2,500 health histories where people fill out a very intricate form and we ask them a bunch of questions. And almost all of them say, I'm eating pretty healthy. Well, what does that mean? What are you actually putting in your mouth from the time you wake up until you go to bed? And if you say you have a salad, I want to know every single ingredient, where it came from, was it grown in, I want to know it all. And when you get the full picture, very few people are eating good, healthy, quality food. And guess what? That's why you're sick. You have tons of toxins going in. You are nutrient deficient, and you are stressed out. Okay, so we have to go back and get the 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material out of your colon. Number one, we have to start cleaning up the cells. We have to do detoxes. Far infrared saunas are no longer a luxury, or they are a necessity today to get shit out of your body, because most people are not sweating enough because they're not exercising, because they got no energy to exercise.
Unless you live in Mexico.
Yeah, we got to sweat. You got to move your body. So there's basic fundamentals. Like these studies, like I said, are great, but what the hell are these people eating? Why are they getting high quality fats afterwards? Are they getting tons of phytonutrients? Probably the answer is no, because I've coached 2,500 people. I've done these. People are not eating this stuff. They think they're eating healthy, but they're not. What's healthy is going out in nature, pulling food out of the ground and consuming it out of wild soil that's not tilled. Okay, that is nutrition. That's healthy. You're eating an egg where the chicken's been out all the time, eating that shit out of that untilled soil, and then you eat that egg and it's all orange and bright and colored, and not the stuff at the stores where they're feeding them genetically modified soy and corn and giving them hormone injections and doing weird shit to them.
Okay,
right?
so with the 2,500 people so you coached, I'm wondering what your take is for women.
Well, I've done
with
2,500 intakes. I've coached about 750.
Okay, 750 people. That's a lot of people. What about the estrogen, progesterone, fertility in women? Is that contraindicated for fasting? So say a woman's menstruating. So is that a time you would recommend fasting, or a time you've seen that?
That's the big question that I've been getting. So now that that fasting is like, when I've done the dry fasting recently, I've done a 5-day in September. In November, I did an 8-day, and then I did another 5-day with these guys. My goal is to do an 11-day in November for deeper healing. I'm not an expert in women. Okay, and I know women got a whole.
I am, but just in a different context.
Hormone stuff going on. I have my little niches, Anthony, that I'm kind of an expert on, but this one's not the one. It's not
so
this
does
one.
Anthony.
Okay, so Anthony, do you want to speak to that? Do you want to speak to that? If you're an expert in women, Anthony, tell me exactly how fasting is going to affect estrogen, progesterone, fertility.
Oh, I thought you meant in a different context. I'm
No.
afraid. But,
If you're the expert, you're the expert.
Well, all I'd say is when I was at fasting retreat, there was lots of women who had serious conditions that did long-term fasting. If that's not, there are two questions. One, is it pleasant? And two, is it good for you? And those
my
are two.
question was,
So,
how does it affect the estrogen and progesterone specifically for like fertility, or should we be fasting when we're menstruating? That's what I want to know.
all I know is I saw a bunch of women fast while they were menstruating, and they received benefits from that fast. Whether it would have been better if they weren't menstruating, maybe. I don't know. So it depends on you. If you can't if it's too disruptive. Like I said, the best fast is the fast that you're actually going to do. So if avoiding your charge cycle is the right way to deliver on the fast, then you should probably do that. But some people there were fasting anywhere for like the longest fasts that were supervised there were 6 weeks. So presumably you can't do a fast of that length without entering your cycle. So I guess, but that would probably be pretty overweight people.
I'm going to throw that to Christian to rebut. But how about before I do that, Anthony? How about, can you speak to the thyroid function?
Yeah, I don't have any data on this kind of stuff. I'm just going based on what I actually saw happen. And but you know, so not everyone thrived on a fast, and maybe some people should have been taking it off earlier. I think the first time I did a long fast.
So timing matters.
I could have come off a couple of days earlier, and it would have been just as good, or if not better, because doing those last 2 days just made my recovery take longer. Because the next time I came, I was five kilograms heavier, and it was a breeze. You know what I mean? So it depends where your body's at. Yeah, there's mental game, there's physical game.
Got you. Okay, Christian, can you speak to
Yeah.
fasting with estrogen, progesterone, fertility, yada yada yada,
Sure,
menstruation?
sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. I could chew your ear off here, but I'll try to keep it succinct. So I saw a few studies there that they were looking at intermittent fasting with PCOS. Now, the mainstream narrative is always vilifying the androgens. So they're saying that
You should
it's
probably say
caused
what
by androgens.
PCOS is, just so
Oh
most
yeah.
Yes, yes. So polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is basically you have cysts, growths on the ovaries, and this is the thing. So in the mainstream, they're blaming testosterone for aggression, dihydrotestosterone for balding, androgenic alopecia. So they're just vilifying what makes men men. And in women, they're using that now to say that it's androgens causing PCOS. Now, so with the intermittent fasting, their androgens lower, and they think, oh, this could be a potential treatment for PCOS. So that's I think it's preposterous, and they're not even doing enough markers in those studies. But what I can tell you, it's anytime cortisol goes up, testosterone in men will go down. We don't have like specific like actual data where they inject them with hydrocortisone to see that like mechanistically as far as I've seen. But anytime cortisol goes up, really progesterone should go down in a similar fashion because they kind of it's a seesaw. Testosterone protects in terms of like it blocks and so does progesterone. It blocks cortisol's negative effects at the receptor level. So anytime you're stressed, it basically is a signal for the body to lower things like LH, FSH from the brain, which then there's less hormonal signaling to the gonads, ovaries, or just testes to make sex hormones and sperm in men. So absolutely, the stress of fasting will have a deleterious effect on thyroid function. We know this. It lowers. It's just what the body does. It lowers metabolism via the thyroid in response to fasting. It's just a survival mechanism. With that, also you have leptin lowering, and leptin that can bring down things like dopamine. It can that's another sort of fertility signal. So low leptin levels will also shut down fertility. I was actually like reading some research there today for the book on that. So absolutely, it's the whole way we survive a fast is by an increase in the various stress hormones from cortisol, glucagon, adrenaline, to also growth hormone and serotonin, and then lowering of the things that basically are nice to have. So fertility, the high testosterone, making progesterone, because that's really beneficial for it's a progestation hormone. So like with my wife and I sometimes are like, my wife is like, yeah, but not enough research is getting done in women. It's not fair. I'm like, actually, let's just be glad that it's a bunch of 20-something broke college boys in America that are getting, hammered with all this bullshit. So women don't have to suffer through this stuff. But absolutely, like if a woman wants to be fertile and pregnant, low carb diets, fasting, intermittent fasting, all of these absolutely must be out of the question for that woman well
Interesting.
after she has stopped breastfeeding. And even then, after now you have the stress of a baby, what's the point in stressing your body further? Just nourish your body, eat like Tim says, eat well, be out in the sun, ground yourself, grow
Get
veg.
that green
Like if you do all
85.
of those things, take
Organic
supplements,
energy juice.
all that good stuff, if you do all of that, you don't need to fast. And if you don't, you probably shouldn't. That's
You-
the thing.
you
If
know,
you
I-
don't, you probably shouldn't.
I'm of two minds here. So I've had great benefits from fasting in my life, but as the only woman on this panel, I can speak to that actually. That fasting when I'm menstruating.
And the best looking.
Oh shucks, that's not a lot of competition. Fasting while I'm menstruating, or even right before, has never been good for me. My energy levels drop. My mood is destabilized. I am an angrier person. You could ask Juan. And just metabolically, my entire body is just off center if I'm fasting, if I'm not timing it properly. So I obviously every person's an individual, but I do have to take Christian's side a little bit on that one because I found it within myself and my own experiences and a lot of the women I've talked to, it has not been conducive. Fertility,
can I
I'm
tell you
not quite
something?
sure yet, but
Can I tell you something?
Yeah,
What
So
if
we
you want
know.
to avoid procreating, Christian? You
Oh,
haven't
then you should
mentioned
fast a
like,
lot.
oh,
You should
okay,
start like
nature's new
the
birth control,
Orwellian term,
guys.
starve yourselves to better
yeah.
health. Do the Orwellian thing.
That's
So
even
just want to tell
cheaper
you,
than the
Bojo,
other method of birth control, which is only a 10 pence piece, which
being a
is you put the
virgin.
penny you put the penny between your knees and then you
Keep
just
it
don't.
clean, Anthony. Keep it
Okay.
clean.
Being so abrasive you never get laid. Right, that's the cheaper method.
Oh, that
um. So
and
sorry,
that
I just
works
wanna
in reverse to how you
just wanna
think
Keep
it
add
it
to what
family
works.
friendly,
Bojo said.
boys. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So Bojo, what you
Christian,
said.
you
So really,
remember
we
he's
actually.
going to be working on you again.
Oh,
So
I want that pain, baby. So Bojo, so we actually
You
know
have to
so
ask
the
very
stress
nicely.
hormones. The stress hormone cascade actually they activate each other. So yeah, like for example, cortisol activates aromatase, which is what makes estrogen. So
Correct, yeah.
if at the same time you're suppressing progesterone, especially at that time where you had like a woman has PMS type stuff. So really, a lot of the PMS is driven by the sort of the delta between the progesterone kind of plummeting in the luteal phase, and then at the same time estrogen rising or staying the same. So anything that raises estrogen, which stress does, because estrogen is a stress hormone. Again, we're told it's the female hormone. No, progesterone is the female hormone. Men and women both have estrogen, and estrogen is used like to heal wounds, and like it is actually a stress hormone for many roles. Of course, in puberty and tissue growth, it's used. But so that's probably why a lot of women feel terrible with fasting. And I've had clients that are near like with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is way worse than PMS. I've had clients that are like straight, not borderline suicidal, straight up suicidal, like thinking about it. And like they've tried things like this, like fasting and low carb and all of these things because of the stress response by the body to allow you to survive those things and continue functioning. They feel worse. So goes back to if you're young and healthy and you don't want to be pregnant and you're not like 60 plus and you're not frail, you don't have sarcopenia, osteoporosis. But if you look at the stats of how many people have that, the range like sarcopenia, muscle loss, osteopenia, osteoporosis, like that excludes a good, I'd say 40% of already people over 60 from fasting because of those things. But then, of
And
course,
we're
if
not
you're
even
not nutrient
considering
deficient,
menopause in there as well. I actually, this is
course.
outside of the context, but I heard an interesting anecdote the other day that if men judge, so our hormones change so much in a matter of 2 to 3 days that men would have to age 125 years to feel the same effect that a woman feels in that kind of weekend. So boys, be
Wow.
nice to your ladies. Yeah.
Is that why you're
We
so
are.
out of control?
So crazy.
And
That's exactly
we could,
why. Exactly why. So be nice, boys. Be nice.
one quick thing is Christian's mentioned it many times is talking about fasting and low carb and making those. I don't know. It's like seems like it's part of the deal. Like I'm not a fan of low carb at all. I'm here to talk about fasting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't.
Just
And low
listing
carb is a
stressful things.
completely separate thing that I think is fucking stupid. And
do
but it's
love my
like
carbs,
it's
too.
well, the thing about carbs is like it's quality of food. That's what
It's
we got to
true.
talk about
Yeah.
because you can. I mean,
How
you
long
can
did
go
it take to
to
get on your table?
you can go to fast food restaurants and be low carb and low fat
Oh,
and all
yeah.
that stuff. And we know all that
Yeah.
stuff is just BS propaganda bullshit.
Trash.
What
So
we
maybe we
need
have to
is
have another
fresh
debate
food.
on carbs.
We need fresh food.
We do.
No, I
That's
think
it.
we all agree carbs are good here. I was just saying what are other. I was just
I eat 'em.
listing stressful things for women that want.
I-
Like I had a lady
and
at the Narcopoco
he's
tell me
not wrong.
she's doing keto and she wants to get pregnant. I'm like, stop right now. This is not medical advice. This is just stop doing keto if you want to be pregnant. She's like 29, I think. Really
Well,
nice couple, beautiful couple.
We're
Like,
also
what are you
very,
doing,
we're
woman?
also very susceptible to cravings during when we're menstruating. So I think it goes both ways. It's like you're gonna feel kind of shitty maybe if you fast, or really shitty. But if you go the other way and eat too much, a personal experience, you're also going to feel really bad. So I think it's a lot what Tim was talking about is being able to make sure you have good food in the house when when you get
You
cravings,
gotta
that
eat
kind of
clean.
thing.
This, I think
It's
we
gotta be
all
clean.
agree here.
Yeah.
You gotta eat cleaner. And Tim, I totally agree with you, man. Because with my clients, we do intake, and then we also track the diet. And like a lot of not everyone. I do have clients that genuinely eat like clean as can be. Like from next door neighbor has a farm type thing. But a lot of people think they eat well, think they eat clean. Then when you look at the diet logs, you're like, well, we have some our work is cut out for us beyond all the other stuff we're gonna do. So that's so important.
And that's what I want to speak to my audience here right now. All three of these gentlemen have incredible programs that can really, really help you, regardless of the disagreements here. They agree on a lot more than they don't disagree with. So if you need some help on that, if the things we're talking about, please go. We're going to give all their socials after. So please go get some help for you, because we stand by everyone we bring on this show, and I think these guys all have incredible information. So if you need some help with rewiring your lifestyle and diet, please follow up with that. Okay, I'm going to move
And if
on
you want
to
to feel a lot of pain and suffering, Anto is your man. Right there.
Right. I need to. I'm going to need to leave soon, but if you guys want to.
Okay. Could I get this one last question in, because this one's actually inspired a little by you? Okay. Okay. Can fasting genuinely reduce systematic inflammation and support autoimmune conditions, or does it sometimes increase inflammatory markers and worsen symptoms in certain populations? Anthony, you can take that away.
I'm going to leave this to the two great scientists of the panel, especially since I need to leave. Thank you so much, guys. I look forward to hearing the rest of the discussion. And I please forgive me for leaving early. We started later than I thought we would.
No
Peace
problem.
out. You guys are great. Love you. See you
Love
soon.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Anthony.
man.
Thanks for
Okay,
coming on.
Tim, I'm going to pass that over to you. Thank you
Yeah,
again,
well,
Anthony.
I've already talked about this when I my inflammation, like in my joints, as an example.
Yeah. What
in the
about
in the body work
Yeah.
session I just talked about, like inflammation was gone. So
what
I've
about
noticed
autoimmune conditions?
Oh yeah, I mean that's just a catch basin of we don't really know what it is. Okay, MS, fibromyalgia, whatever they want to call it, your body's jacked up. And the first thing I would the first thing I would say is like, oh, I have it's my fibromyalgia or whatever, or I have my restless leg syndrome. No, just say your freaking legs hurt, and
They're
now what are you
inflamed.
what are you gonna do about it, right? So this is probably where testing is very important, because like I get people on the basics, and usually if they just do the basics and focus on detoxification, nutrification, and reducing stress and responding differently to the stressors they can't change, like their spouse in most cases, 60 to 80% of people are completely healed. They've healed themselves of their stuff within 6 to 12 months. For the ones that are kind of stuck, then we have to, it's like, okay, you need to go get some tests done. You need to go see food allergy tests and see what you're allergic to right now, and just omit that. Getting the the genetic test done with like MTHFR and these types of things, and see these pathways. So, but then I hand them over to people like Christian, right? So I'm just the meet you right at the beginning guy. But what I have seen for fasting is that people that have these issues, what we do though is we have them do the detox and the nutrification for at least 2 to 3 months, full tilt, before they would even consider thinking about doing a water fast or a dry fast. And because there's no way that I would recommend doing some of this stuff right out of the gate, already knowing that most of the population is malnourished, especially in America. And the people in America that are listening to this, you're overweight, but you're malnourished, no different than the starving kids you see in Africa, where they're trying to suck your money out in these organizations to send them rice that's going to blow up their stomachs and stupid shit like this.
So
You're malnourished.
True that.
We have to nutrify you, even though you have a big belly. You're just eating a bunch of calories that are deficient because the farms have been just farmed out. Nutrition's gone, processed, more nutrition's gone, and then they fortify or enrich it with synthetic chemicals that they call vitamins.
So you're saying we got to monitor and personalize these programs. So it's your intake processes. They come to you. You adjust that, and then you send them to somebody for personalization protocols.
Yeah, if needed. Like I said, I just teach the basics. Like I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be. I mean, if you're going to say doctor is a teacher, which is the Latin form, then I'm one hell of a doctor.
We're all doctors.
Because that's all I do all day long. I try to teach people. Because look, 15 years ago, I was shitting blood. I was 42 pounds overweight. I didn't know any of this stuff. When I discovered this, detox and the nutrition side of things, and my body started healing up, then I'm like, holy shit. And I watched a friend of mine heal himself of cancer in like 2.5 years with no chemo, no surgery, no radiation. Now my belief systems about cancer was like, I thought you get it, you die. My aunt died, my grandma died, my friends died.
Right.
Charles healed himself, and I'm like, oh, there is another option. You can do this. And because I did it with him, now I'm like, shit, I got to tell people about this. So It
I'm-
depends. It's always
yeah.
depends.
I agree, and I must say, from what I've seen in my personal experience, let's take MS specifically, Christian. I do want to tell you about this. Is we found in 100% of autopsy studies, there's parasites in the brain and spinal cord with people with MMS, and the people that I've worked with MS have done so ridiculously well on fasting. So, would it be? I don't know if capitulate's the right word, but are you within your studies, Christian? Would you capitulate, or do you kind of find that there is room for evidence-based fasting protocols if someone has monitored and personalized it?
Personally, so far, and I've been researching now for the book every day for this year, and I hope to publish it in the next 2-3 months. But every single day, I'm more and more convinced that less and less people need fasting as a first line, second line, third line. I just find more and more stuff. For just because your question was about inflammation, I'll quickly share the screen here. Hold on a sec. So just in terms of because your question was specifically about autoimmunity. So
Yeah.
we this paper, chronic stress and autoimmunity, the role of HPA axis and cortisol dysregulation. So they state here, chronic stress leads to impaired hypothalamic pituitary axis feedback, glucocorticoid receptor resistance, and paradoxical cortisol dysregulation, fostering a pro-inflammatory state. So now a 6-day fast, not chronic stress, but things like a stressed lifestyle and then adding intermittent fasting to that, I wouldn't do that. And then if we look at actually long-term fasting and its influence on inflammatory markers, this review study looked at a bunch of papers, and basically they said that inflammation often increases during prolonged fasting. Contrary to popular belief, most studies show rises in CRP, interleukin-6, TNF-alpha during fasts of 48 hours or more. Now, when I looked at the actual studies that they reviewed, and I have all, I'm gonna go over all of those in the book. But if you look at, let's say, the first two, it was 60-hour 260-hour fast, but then it was 10 healthy men, 6 healthy men between the ages of, in one case there were 23 years of age, the other one was between the ages of 19 and 24. So there was no statistically significant changes in hsCRP, TNF-alpha, interleukin-6 inflammatory markers. And then another one with women with rheumatoid arthritis, 5 days, no change in CRP. But if you look at overweight individuals, here is where it starts to get interesting. So the first one here, 10-day water-only fast, CRP increased significantly, TNF, alpha, interleukin-6, and so on. So in these studies with overweight people, in at least some of the inflammatory markers increase. So this goes back to, we have to remember now most, let's say, I'm just going to use the USA because most of my clients are there. Not most, but let's say 2/3 of the US population are overweight, obese, with diabetes, health problems, and they've been eating seed oils and PUFAs all their life. Now, if you take a person like that, those PUFAs, those omega-6 polyunsaturated fats, they hang around in your body for literal years after you even stop consuming them. So anytime you fast, because you're running a lot on fat and ketones, which is made from fat, you're basically unleashing a lot of that. And what that does, probably why they're seeing inflammation in these more longer studies with overweight people, is they're unleashing all these PUFAs on their body. Now their detox systems, their antioxidant systems, and their liver have to handle a lot of that. That's probably why inflammation is rising. So I think if someone's been on the health journey for 5 years, or at least 2-3 years, and all these things that we covered today, eating clean, all that good stuff, stress reduction, then it becomes a lot safer. But if we take an average person from the street right now and we make them fast, even after a few months, even after 6 months, we are potentially opening a can of worms. And that's the thing. I've also got a research that shows that the persistent organic pollutants in your fatty tissue, which is where they get sequestered from all your exposures of organochlorines and various other sort of plastics and combustion byproducts, those also get released, and they can also stay elevated for a long time after someone loses weight. So the whole fasting for weight loss strategy, I think already it stops right out of the gate in terms of being a viable strategy, because if we're just unleashing PUFAs and persistent organic pollutants, as soon as the person starts liberating all that fat from their tissue, it goes against the whole idea of getting healthier. They will lose weight, and they will feel better for losing the weight. But the long-term ramifications is something we need to think a little bit more about. And I don't think enough of these conversations are happening. Hence the reason I'm open to this conversation now, guys. You know.
Okay, I like that, and actually, a lot of that makes sense to me. But in my brain, I've still seen people with MS and let's say tumors. When it comes to cancer, a massive reduction in the size of the tumor or their health changes, or as far as the parasite flushing that they've done with fasting, starving them out, it'd be a huge benefit. I'm sure, Tim, you've probably seen that as well with your work.
So
Well,
I'll just say, like, when you... Yeah.
Sorry, one sec. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say that it's like it's like different conversations. Like, is fasting good for you? It depends. That's just been my experience. It depends. It depends on where you're at. I mean, back, like I said earlier, people, you know, when I said an hour ago, like people through the entirety of time they walked on this planet, they spent half of their life fasting. They weren't eating because food wasn't available, and that was just, so it's built in to us. But there wasn't seed oils, and there wasn't PUFAs, and there wasn't dioxins, and there wasn't all this stuff, right? So now it becomes a scientific question, and that's where I'd actually like to see.
Terrain has changed.
Well, yeah. So I'd like to see. Actually, Christian, if you want to get a good debate, would be probably Dr. August Dunning. That would be a really good person for you to debate because he's into the studies. He was working for NASA, trying to find out how we could land on Mars. And the biggest problem was radiation. And then he found out that dry fasting just destroys radiation, like in just not very long. And so he left that whole NASA program and now he just talks about dry fasting. That's all he does. And so he's into the studies and all that stuff.
Protocol?
Yeah, the Phoenix.
I have that
Phoenix
book. I have that book actually.
Yeah, but so you should just get on and debate him, and you guys could use studies and talk in more.
Ooh, let's send this to him.
Yeah, and more doctor speak, and it's good because there's like, you know, the academics and stuff want to hear about this. Engineers are going to want to know everything. They want to consume everything. The lay person is just trying to figure out what the hell do I do. And you start talking about interleukins and stuff, they're gone. It's like, you know, I don't know if you guys ever watched the Peanuts, like Charlie Brown and that stuff, but that's like when and I've learned this is like, it's like these people, doctors and stuff use these long terms, and it's like wah 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 wah. It's like we're gone, we're done. So the lay person, I hope in your book that you're going to be explaining stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
To the lay person, and it's like, hey, you know, it's like for those of you that want more of this, it's like I almost have an ebook that covers all the studies and stuff like that, because the lay person's just going to be like,
yeah,
look, I just want to lose some freaking weight. I want to get rid of my
I think we should give him a little bit more credit, Tim. Challenge him a little bit, but don't overwhelm him. I think find a middle ground there.
I'm just saying in words and stuff like that. People like me don't understand that stuff, and I've learned a lot of these words in the last 15 years just kind of being around it so damn much, right? Because it's like everybody has their own language. When I was a financial advisor, we had a whole nother language I had to learn, and so when you're in a profession, I think they do that on purpose. And so it makes people be holding
just
to
answering
them.
Baudry's question because she did ask like multiple times throughout the debate, what does the research say? So I'm just saying what I've seen from I've not
to be
read
fair,
it.
I
guess that was a little bit more for me.
I can't debate with you on research because that's not my gig.
Well,
but I was
Dunning
answering
would be a really
Baudry's
good
question is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
You know?
part of what I wanted the diversity here, guys, is because I did want to touch on some research and studies, but I also think that science happens in our kitchen, science happens in our backyard, science is the people that we see around us and the changes that we've made and the people that we've coached or helped, and that's why I say I'm speaking to, you know, what I've seen with MS, but that might not necessarily correlate with the studies, so I think this is a good part of the debate to bring that in. But more to what you were going to say, Tim, is I do have a couple audience questions, and that's where I think we need to come in and be really, really easy to understand. So if you guys up for it, I've got Emily. I'm a 42-year-old woman with hypothyroidism. Is fasting going to make my thyroid worse, or can I do it safely? Sounds like she wants to fast, so maybe these are some guidelines we can give her.
Well, my first question would be like, you know, what are you currently eating?
Some of the ingredients of Mahira, DMSO, and frankincense sacred salve. Beeswax, nature's ultimate protective shield, locks in moisture, soothes, and heals. DMSO, dimethyl oxide, the super penetrating carrier, delivers deep healing power, fast, easing inflammation and pain like nothing else. Nigella sativa fights inflammation, purifies, regenerates, and restores with mighty thymoquinone power. Frankincense Boswellia sacra calms inflammation, rejuvenates skin, restores your balance. Molecular hydrogen distilled, solfeggio infused. Ylang ylang balances sebum, calms inflammation, rejuvenates, comforting and soothing. Castor oil, soothing emollient, moisturizes intensively, reduces inflammation, and draws out toxins. Cacao, rich antioxidant-packed nourishment, hydrates deeply, softens skin, and boosts elasticity. Lavender, soothes irritation, balances energy, and antimicrobial healing. Jojoba, ancient desert miracle oil, mimics skin's natural sebum to deeply hydrate, balance oil, calm inflammation, and heal with powerful antioxidants. Distilled and bottled in Mount Shasta, California. Mahira by iHeal Collectives, DMSO and frankincense sacred salve, healing accelerant, life pain-free as nature intended.
Have you done detoxification? What are the stresses in your life? Again, we meet people at the very beginning. The fasting is not like the first thing we throw at them. Like it's like we have to go back and start at the baseline. And then if that stuff doesn't work, then again, we get other practitioners like Christian in, and we start doing, go to your doctor, get your gene tested, see if you have allergic reactions to foods, do your sensitivity testing and do all that stuff. Because sometimes that stuff right there can be magical for them. Right. And there could be hidden stuff in the house. Like we go through everything from the top of your head to your toe. Like, do you have a breast implant? Do you have mercury fillings? Do you have root canals? Do you have cavitations, which are other pockets of infection when the tooth got pulled and the dentist didn't do it right? Do you have metal in your body? Do you have a bladder sling? Do you have, were you using there's all kinds of stuff appliances and stuff that are people doing. Do you have mold in your home? That's a really good thing to find out. 9 out of 10 homes in America do. And so we got to start thinking about that. There's just so many crazy things. Like people are like, oh, I've got a new baby, and they paint the room. Now that paint is off-gassing for 4.5 years, and they just poison their child. And it's like, guess what? You're getting poisoned too. So it's everything in the environment. The lighting, the air quality, the water quality. Is your water purified and structured? Is your food fresh and not sprayed and clean and grown in nutrient deficient soils? Is your clothing made out of natural fibers that wasn't sprayed? Like cotton's the second most sprayed crop. Because if you're wearing polyester, ladies, your Lycra bras, those are off-gassing hormones. These shirts are off-gassing 97% after 1,000 washes. These hormone disrupting chemicals.
It's plastic. You guys want silk,
you're putting
like
crude oil in
shirt,
your body.
cotton.
So there's so much more to talk about
Linen.
before we even get to a fast that you'll probably fix your issues before then. But the question is maybe, and it depends. But we got to get to the environment and change the environment first and see how the body responds.
Yeah, I think we can all probably agree on, even Christian, not fasting, but if you're going to do these rigorous things, make sure that your elimination systems are cleared out first, right? So you're not stacking toxins on top of your elimination systems and therefore causing a
day one,
painful healing crisis or going through way more than you need to be within this. Do you have
Can
anything to
I
add to
answer
that, Christian?
Emily's question?
Yes, please.
So my answer would be absolutely not. I would not recommend fasting with a person with hypothyroidism, because in many women, the hypothyroidism is the result of chronic stress of various kinds. It could be undernutrition, could be malnutrition, it could be deficiencies in various
Iodine
cofactors.
deficiency?
Well, I mean, it could be selenium, it could be whatever. But so and I've had clients with pretty severe hypothyroidism. I had one lady in Australia, her TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, it was so high that's when we found out that the lab, they don't have they have an upper limit on, so her TSH was 150. And over 4, your doctor will already, diagnose you potentially and put you on the thyroid medication. So she was 150. And then I was actually pretty scared that she might have like a pituitary tumor or something. Listen, I think if it was me, because her doctor had already given her the T4, prescribed it. Like, if it was me, I would take the T4 to see if this starts going down. Because if it doesn't, and I didn't say it in those words, because if it doesn't, it could be a bigger problem. I just
Get a CT
strongly,
scan.
strongly said that if it was me, I would see if that level goes down with the medication. And thank God, it did get lower down, and eventually, we kind of, she made amazing progress to the point where she had she got pregnant. She didn't go for a single scan. She had her baby at home. She didn't even go to the doctor for a scan even once. And they were healthy and all that good stuff after. But like with these women, and I've had some of these cases where it can take she was with me 2 years. It can take a good 6 to 12 months of doing everything right, like nourishing your body really well before you even like get to the point where you can start properly exercising and kind of doing stuff like that. So because in those people, even just what for us is nothing, mild exercise for them could be yet another stressor that keeps them in that hypometabolic state. So absolutely, that's like literally the last thing I would have a female client of any age, especially over 30, 40, is doing a fast. And I would not ever tell her, even if you get better, to ever fast, because that's how we get back into the cycle of stress. And because, like, let's say 5 years, 10 years down the line, you're older. Now you're older. And it's like you've been getting exposures, even though you got all your ducks in a row, we're still getting exposed. We're still accumulating micro dysfunctions along the way. So the older we get, the less stress we have to put on the body. And what's being glorified in the mainstream and alternative mainstream is who's got the biggest balls, can do the most ice baths, or the longest fast, or the most carnivore, or the most exercise. And like that we're glorifying stressing the shit out of our body. And I think that's not good for our health at all. So to
I
answer your
concur.
question, Emily, don't do it.
We agreed on something.
But we
That's
agree on
also-
way more than we disagree on. I tell you that.
Of
That
course,
is
of course.
100% true. That's 100% true.
We're
we
on the
talked a
same
little-
team, I believe. So
Yeah,
we are
Oh,
on the
yeah.
same team at the end of the day.
Yeah,
We talked
team.
a little-
Let's wake people the f up and
Yeah.
help them
Eat
get
better, live better.
People should just wake up and feel good. You have a birthright to feel damn good. I mean, that's what it
Yes.
is. We just want to
Yes.
help you get back to.
Amen.
It's true.
to
You
life.
should
I mean,
not wake
geez.
up feeling like a pile of trash. If so, you're doing something wrong. Consult us. We talked a little bit about this already, but Emil really wanted this question answered. He's got an autoimmune or inflammatory condition, and he says that within his community, some people say fasting will help inflammation, but others warn it can trigger really bad flares. What's the truth, and how would you mitigate those flares if they do happen, regardless if it's faster and faster? Go ahead, Tim. You want to take it away?
Just repeat what I said about Emily's question.
Okay.
Start with the
There's-
basics.
Start with
the basics. And if you do the
Now-
basics, you'll probably be handled. And then maybe you're going to be doing fasting. Like me, I've been at this for 15 years.
Now, if it does trigger
I-
a flare, though, what would you do to mitigate that?
If fasting triggered a flare,
Yeah, it took a flare up in his condition.
stop fasting.
Okay, good. There you go.
Like, yeah, and that and that can happen. Because when I got off processed foods, I wasn't fasting. I was drinking purified water with lemon and lime juice. I was drinking wheatgrass shots, 2 ounces twice a day. I was having 16 ounces of green juice that was half cucumber and celery, and the other half was fresh cut sunflower and pea sprouts. And I was eating living foods, salads and stuff like that. I was at an institute doing this. They're growing all the stuff, 3 acres, trays of sprouts. I was eating sprouted nuts, sprouted seeds, sprouted greens, sprouted beans, fresh living foods. That's what was pouring into my body. And so I had a detox reaction or a Hertz reaction during that process of putting all this yummy, delicious, nourishing food into my body. I had night sweats. I was irritable. I had a metallic taste coming out of my tongue. I wasn't feeling good. I was exhausted. I was tired. My body was purging stuff. I was doing surgery without a knife while I was flooding myself with nutrition that my body hadn't received. And it's probably since I had my own mother's breast milk. Been a long time, right? Because I've been on the Gerber baby food, processed food bandwagon my whole life. And so I think it's really important to recognize this, is that almost all of us are living in a world of deficiencies. And we're polluted. So we always have to go to everybody. I don't care if you've got stage 4 glioblastoma brain cancer, or you want to lose 5 pounds, it's always the same. It's detoxification, getting the stuff out of the body, saunas, water, all that stuff, green juices, flooding the body with nutrition, and reducing stress and learning how to respond differently to stress. To me, that is the foundation. I already know what your problems are before you even ask the questions or you come talk to us. It's those three things. Then after that, I leave it up to the experts to start doing the testing and find out those little nuances where they might need a special this or a special that. Um, and sometimes it actually, I hate to say it, but not really hate, but sometimes they might need a medication in the case of somebody with bipolar or something like that. So there are some certain circumstances that I think that,
Yeah, and
unfortunately,
can I
but it's
add?
glad that we have them.
I just want to riff off of what you said. I would say, like, you always, just to kind of concur there, is you always have to do the basics right. You should never be thinking about like peptides and like,
No.
stem cell therapy, all this nonsense, before you even have the basics right. And what I've noticed with people that come to me, they've they've been labeled a lot of the time. Sometimes they label themselves because of their, the research, but they've been labeled, you have autoimmune. So I had one lady, she had three diagnoses. I don't remember what the third one was, but it was rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. I forget what the third one that they pinned on her, and a lot of joint pain, stuff like that, and of course other stuff, fatigue, whatever. And so we did that urine test that we run. We did the food sensitivity test where they expose your blood to the various foods, so they see how your immune system is currently reacting, what's inflammatory, what's safer. And on the urine test, we also see things like toxic metals, things like that. So I saw her gadolinium toxic metal was not just off the charts, it was 7 times off the above the top of the range off the charts. And I asked her, okay, so I did a bit of research, exposures. And one of the major ones would be, the contrast dye you get injected with prior to getting an MRI. So I'm like, just remind me, because she had some other stuff that she needed to have an MRI. It's like, just remind me how many MRIs you had. And she had several MRIs in recent years due to some other kind of issue with her hearing. And I'm like, well, I don't think at that point, when I looked at kind of the symptoms caused by gadolinium toxicity, there's a lot of overlap with things like rheumatoid arthritis, joint pain, just kind of symptoms of toxicity, being poisoned. So I'm thinking to myself, well, how many people have been labeled as having an autoimmune issue that it might not actually be like specifically the immune, like the gut perturbing the immune system, and that's kind of the reason for their symptoms that they've been pinned the autoimmune label for. I think in a lot of people today, they don't realize is it could actually straight up be toxic things in your body, that your body is either they're kind of, for example, gadolinium and lead and various metals, they can get stored in our bones. They can actually displace certain minerals, and then remineralizing the body can displace them out. But that actually is what causes those detox symptoms in some people, that process of like zinc pushing cadmium out of specific enzyme binding sites and whatever. So like I'm thinking, like, a lot of people, like, they're thinking, I gotta do a gut test. And she had done 3 gut tests, and I'm looking at each of these gut tests over like a span of like a couple of years. I'm like, I'm not seeing. I mean, there was things we could improve, like, whatever, digestion wise, like pancreatic elastase wasn't very high, so you're like, okay, maybe you need some pancreatic enzymes and stuff, but I'm not seeing like severe dysbiosis. I've seen people with a lot less symptoms have a lot more kind of dysbiosis being indicated on the test. So it clearly wasn't really the gut. So and that's the thing. What's the solution? It's like you're not gonna like straight up go tell the person, go to a doctor and get a doctor to start injecting with chelators and stuff like that, because, like, I mean, that's such a sledgehammer for something that the body knows how to
Yeah.
deal with. Yeah, it's a big issue, but what do we do to deal with it? We just do the fundamentals, and that's what I teach my clients. You do the fundamentals well, and then, sure, if you want to get some PPC 157 or some peptides or some fun stuff, ozone therapy, whatever you want, do whatever the hell you want to do. Even if you want to, I'll tell some people, like I had one client at an Acapulco, he's still infatuated with fasting. I'm like, dude, like, if you want to do it for the spiritual reasons, do it for the spiritual reasons. Just remember, and I did that in my workshop, I talked about Buddha did not attain enlightenment with his ascetic practices. And talking about religions having fasting, well, the religions are there to suppress basically humanity. I don't trust the religions, but again, I'm okay with people doing it for spiritual purposes, but let's not delude ourselves that we're getting healthier. It's fine to do these things, even if you want to do it as a rite of passage to see if you can do it. It's like when I was 30, 10 years ago, I did a Thai boxing Muay Thai fight against a dude that was like leaner, taller, stronger, 10 years younger than me, 11 years younger than me even. I did it because I wanted to do a freaking fight. It was on my bucket list. I wasn't getting healthier and I wasn't deluding myself. The stress of that is making me healthier and I could have gotten hurt, but I still did it. And that's fine. I think we should be able to do whatever the hell we want. But with the fasting, for spiritual purposes, I still am of the opinion, in a healthy person, it's probably taken away from health. Maybe not a lot, but I don't think it's making them healthier. But of course, that's something we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there is something to be said. You know, whatever religion you believe in, or if you believe in religion at all, but there's some great advice in there. Like for me, when in Leviticus, when they say salt everything heavily. Well, it's not just a religious, to me, a connotation on that. It's like your body needs 5 to 10 grams of high-grade sea salts a day for you to be mineralized and to pass hydrogen through.
And if
So,
you are going to lie with another man, that you should be stoned. Like,
I mean, you can
that.
take and leave, yeah, you can take and leave that. But I think there are
I can.
some good things in there when it comes to dietary and health that we do need to at least bring back into that. You know, how many people are not mineralized just because their doctor told them not to have salt? You know, so I think there's an
it's
argument
huge.
to be said
It's
either
huge.
both ways. I have about
That's
6
huge.
more questions, but you guys pretty much answered all of them within our scope of what we're talking about. So let's move down to just kind of final thoughts. Where would you like to leave this today within what you're going to tell our audience? Let's start with you, Tim.
Just learn to become your own doctor. That's it.
That's a good one.
Appoint yourself today that you are your own doctor, and that you may or may not need to build your own personalized medical, integrative, holistic team of health practitioners below you, but you're the captain of that ship. And knowing that you can fire them at any time. They are elected. They work for you.
That's a good one.
And to go make sure that these people resonate with you, not just because they have alphabet soup behind their name a mile long and they've got a bunch of degrees from organizations that are the only places that really care about that degree. What people are looking for today is results. And that's why all these... Go ahead.
I always caution people along those same lines is if someone's giving you health advice, look at them. Do they look healthy? Now, Tim looks healthy. Christian looks healthy. I hope that I look healthy. Don't follow health advice from someone that's 400 pounds overweight, even though they have a doctor in front of their name. Go ahead, back to you.
Well, yeah, that's good advice too. I always, you don't want to have somebody work on your eyes if they're blind, right? The blind ophthalmologists, the overweight dietitians and nutritionists. Mm-hmm. Question everything is another thing. And then if you're still plugged into the mainstream media, then just write down what they're doing and go the opposite way. And you've got about a 99% chance that that's where the success lies. Just do the opposite of what's going on. Because if you look around, human beings, especially in Western areas, we're sicker than we've ever been. Our children are now, life expectancy is dropping. So our children will now die younger than us. And cancer's on the rise. It's crazy, right? So as adults, we just have to wake up and say, okay, look, like when I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s. There was one kid in our school that was in my class that was overweight in my school. And now it's like 50%. So if you have an overweight child, you're probably overweight and it's child abuse. Okay. You probably didn't know that until I just said it. But now that I said it, now it's like, what are you going to do about it? Like you have to take responsibility.
Once you know.
Yeah, you can't go back. You can't unlearn this shit. And I was there. I was the guy that was 42 pounds overweight, pooping blood, skin issues, eczema all over my body, had to be life flighted for an emergency surgery. I was there. 15 years ago, I didn't know any of this stuff. But now I do. This is a moral obligation for me to get up and do this. And I was doing this for years before I left the financial services industry. I just did it for free because I want to get people out there because I saw my friend heal of cancer. So the deal is that you are an extension of God. You have the ability to heal. You should be the captain of your own ship. Appoint yourself today your own doctor, and understand that you are part of nature, and that all your suffering is from the disconnection from Mother Nature, Earth, the mothership, and your connection to God. So if from my path was more getting healthy, detox, and nutrition, and that opened up my spiritual path. Somebody else might get the spiritual path opened up and then find the food, right? And stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there. But just understand that on a God level, you are an indestructible force. And your relationship with God is the most important thing. Don't let somebody below you, whether it be a doctor or anybody or even a spouse, tell you how you should live your life.
I like it a lot. Thank you so much, Tim. Can you tell everyone where to find you, please?
Yeah, my podcast is called Tim James Upgraded because I'm always upgrading. I was hoping that Christian could convince me today, because then I would stop fasting. But I'm always trying to upgrade. And he said some great stuff too, and it made me ponder a few things too. So it's good.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I appreciate his time and your time for putting this on. My main website is chemicalfreebody.com, and I'm also on Instagram at chemicalfreebodyguy. And I would just say, hey, if you're wanting to get started and you don't know what to do, just come on over and try some of our organic energy juice. And
Oh my God, that new apple one you have is delicious.
yeah, it's a home run. We're very
So
excited
good.
about, because now the
So
kids
good.
are sucking it down, and you know, 10
sent me
years
some
of
in Mexico.
10 years of having the original flavor, and within 4 months the apple flavor has overtaken sales. So
It's
you
delicious.
have to meet people where they're at. And I think that was a
Agreed.
big takeaway from this, is that even though this is this fasting debate, I don't think that you should just jump into fasting right out of the gate. Like, no, like you need to get to the fundamentals first, go through that process. You have plenty of time to do your research. His book will be out by then.
Yeah.
You can decide whether fasting is something for you or not, you know, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's this is your life. This is your,
Yeah.
you have choice. There's dark, there's light, there's good and evil, but there's choice that's right down the middle. So the universe is kind of drifting in a positive direction. So just go with the flow and understand that you are the captain of your own ship.
I agree like that a lot. And like, I don't think I've been fully convinced today either, Christian. I want to do some more research on this, but there was a couple points you brought up that I did not know. And that's the reason that we do these kind of debates. It's like, let's move forward with inquisitive minds and actually look at the information, right? Become well versed on what we were talking about and see if it is for you. I think the next debate we should do should be urine therapy. Controversial topic.
I don't think there's much of a debate here. I think we all agree.
Yeah, I think so as well. Can you tell everyone where to find you, Christian, and when your book's going to be out?
I don't know where the book will be out. I'm hoping before the end of the summer. But folks can find me at livelongerformula.com, and I have a podcast, The Live Longer Formula, and yeah, that's how folks can connect with me.
And you also have a book,
thank you guys.
Live Actually Longer, which is awesome, guys.
Yeah,
I
how
think
to
everyone should
actually-
read that. It's really good.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Yeah, How to Actually Live Longer. Volume 1 is on Amazon already, and I'm hoping that maybe next year I'll get Volume 2 out. That should be good as well. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of quickly say that I totally. I'm happy to hear that Tim also says it's not for everybody, and maybe now isn't the right time. And there's a time and place for everything. So I think it's important, because in one of my communications with Anthony, he said at one point on WhatsApp, he said I believe pretty much everyone will benefit from fasting. And if we kind of start just kind of being a bit more discerning, let's look at this person. Are they hypothyroid? There's a lot of toxicity exposures, deficiencies, sarcopenia, osteoporosis. If we can then figure out who is not a good candidate and help them get nourished and get them healthy in other ways, great. And then all the folks that are stronger, healthier, and especially younger, if they wanted to go this direction, absolutely. I'm of the opinion we should all be able to make our own choices. And it's very difficult to say to someone, you gotta, this is not good for you, when it makes them feel better. Now, I will say, of course, yes, when I used to drink a lot in my 20s every single day, I felt good with the drinking and the smoking and the drugs. So we also have to be cautious, just because that's why people chase the runner's high, that's why people are adrenaline junkies. Some people are addicted to drama in their relationship because of the cortisol and the elation that the adrenaline, the stress hormones cause. So we also have to be cautious and just kind of stay open-minded, because it's easy to restart something if we think it's good. Let's say you were, doing whatever, swimming across a river near you, and then someone says there's sharks in there, don't swim there, and you find out they were BSing you, and you can just go back to swimming. But sometimes being a bit cautious with some of these things that are becoming very popular, I also think is important, because we've seen a lot of the things that become popular in recent times, a lot of the time in the long term it turns out they're not so good, and we've seen it so much since the cholesterol stuff in the 50s, 60s, and then the seed oils. And then I'm noticing all the research I'm reading, it's either neutral, positive, or they're like fasting is a viable option for all this. So I'm seeing in the mainstream sort of the world and YouTube and stuff, it's gaining a lot of traction. So that is what is making me be a lot more cautious right now, if that makes sense.
It does, and maybe that's why Auntie ran away so early, because he couldn't speak to that. But thank you so much. I just want to say a big shout out to Sean, our other co-creator, who's here as our technician. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
your help
Sean.
today.
Welcome.
Thanks,
Well,
buddy.
thank you, boys. This has been amazing, and I hope we can continue some future debates. And maybe debate's a weird word for it. I think it's just more of a conversation. That we can do this a lot
Just
more
clickbait to get
times.
people here.
Clickbaity.
Exactly.
I like it. Well, you guys should all be here.
blood
Please follow
sport.
us on social media.
Thank you
Join
guys,
these
and you're
guys.
welcome, by the way.
And thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
And this podcast is brought to you by Mahira.
I'm Solcia, and I am originally from Utah, and I would say my community lives in San Diego now.
So my name is Saskia, and I'm from a lot of different places.
My name is Mandy Niebergy, and I'm from Canada, from Saskatchewan.
So yeah, my name is Howard. I come from England, so it's been a journey to come here.
I was interested in kind of growing as a person. I wanted to grow, I wanted to go into healing.
I want to figure out how to access the trauma that's been stored in our bodies and be able to let it release.
I wanted to come down and learn the same technique.
You've got to experience it, man. It's crazy. It's like, oh, bro, I haven't experienced it, but I've watched her work. I know she's doing some crazy stuff.
There's a lot of trauma release that we get into and that we're releasing with the pain and with the tension bands.
My experience has been amazing. Like, I don't know if I can even put into words.
It's been more than I was expecting. The emotional side of this course has been a big aspect that I didn't know coming into it.
A roller coaster of emotions, and the people here have been fantastic. I mean, the people that were joining me on this course were just amazing. They all brought something different.
My fellow classmates for this course have been meshing so well, and I know I got some true friendships going forward that aren't going to be broken.
Everyone here has just been such a magical person that's brought their own story, their own medicine to the dynamic here, and it's been fun because normally you get to know people through conversations and maybe sharing music, but actually sharing bodywork, you kind of get to know people on a whole other level, and it's beautiful just experiencing that as well.